The Attic by Stephen Gifford. It was 1982 and I was 6 years old. I was staying with my granny at 42 Belfast Road, Lisburn for the weekend. I was playing in the garden. Grandad was gardening as usual. The garden was full of blossoms. There were roses, lilies, gladioli and foxgloves. There were gooseberries, strawberries, raspberries and blackberries. He grew cabbages, potatoes, lettuce and carrots. There was a greenhouse. He grew cucumbers and tomatoes. It was fun to play on the lawn. My big brother and I played croquet. We decided to play hide and seek. It turned into an army game. There were a lot of soldiers on the streets in Lisburn then. There was an old tree house I could hide in. It was in the apple tree. At the bottom of the tree there were beehives. There was no ladder, so I climbed the branches. The tree house was decrepit. It was made up of old wooden boxes. Royal Mail logo was on the side of the box. There were holes in the roof. There were so many webs, the spiders were using them as a motorway to get back to their crevices. Rotten leaves were lying on the floor, browns, golden and yellows. In the middle of the leaves, there was a dead bat, with its wings covering its face. I was standing in the doorway with its non-existent door. I could see the all-weather tennis courts and I could hear a train going past. I leaned out and slipped on some rotten leaves. I felt a wisp of air on the back of my neck. I fell out hitting the ground like a stone or a bag of potatoes hitting a stone path. Luckily I missed the beehives. I started to scream like a baby because my arm hurt. I had not realised that my arm was broken. I went to the garage to speak to my dad to look for some sympathy. I did not get any because I was always falling. I went looking for Granny. I went first to the scullery. The scullery was a small kitchen. There was a Belfast sink as big as 2 sinks full of vegetables which were all dirty. Onions were hanging from the ceiling by their stalks. It reminded me of onion sellers who you find in Paris. On the floor was a cobbler's boot mender. I had to watch my step or I would have fallen over it. I went into the kitchen, and Granny came into the kitchen as she had finished off sorting the food out in the cold room. Granny kissed me and asked if I was all right. I told her I was fine with a tear in my eye, but I think I've broken my arm. She got me to move my arm and my fingers. I could move my arm and my fingers, so Granny didn't think it was broken. She said, "Sit down and I'll make a honey and peanut butter sandwich. Granny's special." I sat down at the long, narrow kitchen table. It was covered with a plastic checkered tablecloth. I was sitting on a bench which came out of a school. It had graffiti with people's names all over it. I saw Susie's name. And then I thought it was my Welsh cousin. Sammy, the one-eyed cat, was sleeping in his box which was beside the hearth. Soup was cooking on the range. There was an aroma of fresh baked bread which tantalised my taste buds. I drank my tea and ate my sandwiches. I decided to go and lie down. I went into the downstairs hallway, which led into what was years ago the servants' quarters. Above the cold room, over the doorway, was a selection of bells. One of the bells began to ring. The one to my bedroom. The bells were there since the 1700s for the family to alert the servants. It wasn't one of my family, for they were in the back garden. I thought it was the wind blowing through the hall because the front door was open. I started to climb the stairs. There was dust on the banister and there were some cobwebs on the rails. Granny didn't worry about those small things. It was darker at the bottom of the stairs and some scary shadows had appeared. I got to the first floor and sunlight was coming in through the window above the front door. It got warmer by the second. Grandad's out and about hat hung on the banister on the first floor. There was a brass tray on the hall table. The tray had pictures of ancient Egypt figures all over it. There were pharaohs, sphinxes and pyramids. The pyramids were the resting places of the dead. The post set on the table unopened. There was a notepad and pencil sitting beside the phone to write down messages for the family. I climbed the stairs, holding my arm, until I arrived at my bedroom. I laid myself on my bed for a while. The room turned ice cold and I started to shake. I didn't worry about that because the house was always cold. I pulled the cover over me. I was dozing with my eyes partly open. Then I saw a figure, sitting on the chaise longue by the fireplace. She whispered, "Hello. My name is Susie." I asked her who she was and what she was doing there. She said that she was a servant's child and had died of smallpox. They lived in the attic. "That's my den," I said. "I don't mind. I have toys to play with, Susie said. Do you want to take a walk in the garden? Susie asked. Yes, I answered. Susie held her hand out and I grasped it. Next thing we were both floating in the air. We ended up in a patch of sunflowers. The garden was perfumed with a heavy scent from the flowers. Bees were collecting pollen on their wings. I saw a blue flash and a peacock appeared with fanned out feathers. Birds chirped above my head. Susie was pulling a funny face and doing a funny walk among the sunflowers, showing that she had a good sense of humour. She picked a sunflower and threw it to me like a rugby ball in a boisterous way. She was intelligent because she asked, "What is Pythagoras' theory?" But I did not know the answer. She told me that in a right-angled triangle, the square of the longer side equals the sum of the squares of the other sides. She picked up the sunflower and sniffed it. Susie ended up with a yellow nose. The pollen made her sneeze. She fell back and woke up a dormouse. I laughed and Susie said she didn't like me. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I realised that it was my granny because she was singing hymns. I woke up as Susie disappeared. It must have been a dream. I felt disappointed when I realised that I was in my bed and not in the field of sunflowers.